Hi everybody. So I'm going to talk about how to make a dynamic counter. So you can count an event happening and then you can display that number on the screen. And this is intended to help you finish up Flappy Bird. So first thing I'm going to do is get out my standard Shrek head. And the purpose of this is solely to be a game object to hold code. And I'm going to introduce a new idea, and that is to put in some user interface game objects. And specifically, we're going to put in a text object. So I'm going to go to the game object tab here, and I'm going to go down to UI, and I'm going to select text. And notice when you do that inside the hierarchy, you get a bunch of things here, and they're a little bit intimidating. I want you to focus on text because that's the game object that we care about. And also notice that when I did this, I got another white frame box on the stage, and it's a little bit different than the box of the field of view of the camera. And try not to worry about that. Like, don't try to move the boxes towards each other. You can see it's this big, huge box. So just leave it alone and adjust it the way I do. So I'm going to do that right now. So we're going to tune this box so that I can see my counter. And so I'm going to, I've selected text here in my hierarchy, and I'm going to go over to the inspector. And the first thing I'm going to do is notice that the position of my text is in some big negative X and Y coordinate location. So I'm going to change the X coordinate to 0, and I'm going to change the Y coordinate to 0, and we're going to check that in just a second. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you can see all the different things that we can choose. One of them is what are we initially going to display with the text object. So here I'm going to just write happy, because we are happy that school's almost over. And then you can pick the font, you can pick the style, and you can also pick the size. So I'm going to make this bigger, 24 font from what it started out. And you can pick, oh, and then these two guys, these control what happens when if you count up and the number gets too big, what happens when it can't fit in the box. So I'm going to click overflow for both the case where it gets too big vertically and horizontally. And then I'm going to make the color red, and that's just so it shows up. Yay. Okay, so that customizes the text. So good. All right, now the next thing I have to do is connect this text object with my Shrek head. So I'm going to select my Shrek head, and this is old hat. You should know how to do this. And so now you can see this is selected here, and I'm going to make a script. So I'm going to say add component, and I'm going to go down and say new script. I'm going to call this DT for dynamic text. And I'm going to say create and add. So now I have this source code file, and I'm going to open it up with Visual Studio. That's the editor that I have plugged into my version of Unity. You either have that or Mono Develop. So it's thinking. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to make a text object that can hold my text happy. I want to connect the happy object in my Unity program with the source code. So I'm going to say public, which is going to allow me to initialize it. I'm going to say text, which is a type of object. And I'm going to say, I'm going to call it text temp. So that's just the name of my variable. It's going to point at that object. So I'm going to compile this. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to press F5. And I've got got errors, and it says it doesn't know what text is. Okay. So it turns out this thing up here called a directive needs to look like this. I forgot to do this, and you'll have to do this too. So unityengine.ui, capital U, capital I. And then I have to keep the one I had before because I edited that one. And I'm going to put this guy in here without the UI. Okay, so it was missing this. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to press F5 again and hope that I fixed my errors. Okay, that looks happy. So now I'm going to minimize this. And I am going to hope that my Unity program here is active. I'm going to hit play so I can see my movie, and I'm hoping I'll see my Shrek head next to a red word that says happy. There it is. Okay, so I initialized my word to be happy. So I'm going to stop that, and that shows I've got the connection between the text object here and the text object that I defined inside of my program. So now what I need to do is I need to initialize, I've got this public variable here, text temp, and it says none. That's the connection to the object. And I want to associate it with this guy here. So I'm going to keep this selected. Oops. Boom. And oops, this is a little bit tricky. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to grab my text guy and I'm going to put it, oops, I lost my Shrek. So we got to keep Shrek alive. And this is the tricky part. And then when I do this, I want to get, oops, stay there, yeah, oops. Okay, so Shrek is still selected, but I'm hovering over the text. And I'm going to take this guy and drop it right where it says none. Oops, that didn't quite get it. Boom. So I'm going to take my text guy and put it right there. Come on, baby. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Shrek needs to go back and behave. Okay, so I've got my text object here. I'm hovering, and I'm going to drag this over and drop it right there. Okay, I got it. It was probably good that I muffed that up so you can get this because it's a little tricky. So you select the game object, and then you select the text object, and notice that the game object is still highlighted, like Shrek still's got the blue dots around him. And then you drag this game object over to the public variable in the script, and you let go. And that initializes the user interface text object, the one that's displayed, happy in our case, to be equal to text temp, which is in our code. So now we're going to go back to Unity, and inside start, we're going to initialize our counter variable. Ooh, we don't have one yet. Let's put that in here. So we're going to count clicks. And I got this debugging thing going, so I'm going to say stop debugging. I'm going to put a counter variable, and it doesn't need to be public, so I'm just going to call it counter. And inside start, I'm going to initialize counter equals 0. And then I'm going to say text temp. So the variable referring to text temp is the name of what's displayed here. It's this guy right here, which is presently displaying happy. So I'm going to go initialize that guy, and you do that by saying the name of the variable dot text, txt, all smalls, equals, and then I'm going to put counter in there, and you have to turn it into a string because counter is an integer. And if you say toString like that, that's how it turns it into a string. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to F5 it and see it, and it compiled. Okay, so that's good. And now I'm going to go to Unity, and I'm going to run this, and I should see 0, a red 0 on this thing. There it is. Don't mind any of this console stuff. So that is my initialized value for this text variable done by initializing this variable text temp to be assigned to this user interface. And then the last step, just to cement the deal, is I am going to put a keystroke in here, and I already have stuff figured out. Let's see, I think it's in here. Can I see that? Yeah, let's go here. Okay, so this is code I already wrote, and I'm being a little bit lazy. I'm going to copy this and paste this into my update. So this is the program that runs once a frame. And I'm going to put that in here. And what this is doing, and this, you might not have seen this before, this is another code, a Boolean that detects whether you pressed a key. And you get to write afterwards which key, and I'm going to press the comma key. And if you do that, the counter is going to increase, and then the variable, which I've called some text temp, is going to be, the string version of that will be displayed. Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to compile it, and then I'm going to go back to Unity. I'm going to clear my console. Actually, I'm going to not display my console. It's irritating. I'm going to hit play, and that now will run the code I just wrote, the compiled code. Okay, and this, when I hit the comma key, and I'll tell you when I do it, this number should go up by 1. So there, I'm going to hit it right now, and then I'm going to hit it again, and again, and again, again. So that's how you make a dynamic counter, and I'm just banging on the keyboard right now. There you go. So you should be able to take this idea and marry it with your Flappy Bird game so that you can either count obstacles you've run into or missed, or provide a way to get a score so that you can see who wins. All right, have fun.